Have you ever felt, deep down, that this life is your grand finale? As if an ancient presence whispered that, among all experiences you've lived, this is the last dance on the human stage? Maybe it's just a subtle unease. Maybe it's a certainty that grows each day, a persistent feeling of déjà vu, of repetition, as if the same paths were being trodden, but now with a clarity never felt before. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to access more stories like this. What if, contrary to what many believe, reincarnation wasn't just an eternally spinning wheel, but a journey with a destination? A sequence of existences heading towards a final point, where the soul finally finds freedom and completeness. Take a deep breath. Think about every detail of your life: dreams, encounters, losses, achievements, oddities. Are you, without realizing it, on the threshold of that destiny? Today I'm going to reveal signs, sensations, and mysteries that might indicate your soul is indeed about to transcend the cycle of rebirths itself. Are you ready to dive into this enigma and recognize the signs within yourself? This video can change not only how you see life, but everything you understand as reality. Before I go on, I want to ask you a favor. If at any point you feel like I'm speaking directly to you, like this video right now, and subscribe to the channel. Comment. Have you ever felt like you're living a last chance here? Your experience can transform other lives. Now, get ready. Let's embark together on a profound journey where spirituality, science, and self-knowledge intertwine and reveal invisible layers of human existence. To understand where this end-of-cycle feeling comes from and how to identify its signs, we need to hear from those who dedicated their lives to exploring the mysteries of the soul. And few figures are as emblematic as Edgar Cayce, known worldwide as the Sleeping Prophet. Few people know this, but Cayce performed thousands of readings in a trance state in which he accessed information that surpassed any logical or scientific explanation, speaking about past lives, soul missions, and the ultimate destiny of being. According to Cayce, the cycle of reincarnations isn't a prison, it's a school. Each incarnation would be a precious opportunity to learn, grow, evolve, and yes, complete fundamental stages of our spiritual development. He used to say that the soul, upon finishing its earthly education, feels a silent calling, a mix of peace and longing for something greater, for a place or state beyond the human condition. This view isn't isolated. It's shared by ancient traditions, from Hinduism to Buddhism, from Hermetic schools to modern accounts of near-death experiences, and even contemporary consciousness scholars. Psychiatrist Brian Weiss, for example, while investigating past life memories in hundreds of patients, observed recurrent patterns in those who seemed ready to transcend. Cayce described the process of incarnation and learning as a path, a ladder that each person climbs at their own pace until the last lesson is learned. When that happens, the soul feels like it has been here before and begins to question the very need to repeat old cycles. Important to remember, recognizing yourself in this process is no reason for arrogance or a feeling of superiority. On the contrary, it's a call to humility, empathy, and compassion for the pains and quests of others. After all, each soul has its own time, its own particular rhythm. Now, let's dive into the journey and the inner signs that indicate your soul might be bidding farewell to the earthly experience. Pay attention. The signs are more common than you think. Imagine, for a moment, that life, all of them, not just this one, is a huge classroom. In each existence, your soul chooses new subjects, faces different challenges, meets other people, and completes stages that, little by little, shape your heart, your consciousness, and your vision. With each lesson learned, a cycle closes. With each forgiveness granted or received, a knot unravels. With each act of compassion, a light ignites. Unlike what many think, reincarnation isn't punishment. There's nothing punitive about the process. It's pure evolution. When we look back and notice patterns repeating, the same difficulties, the same challenging relationships, the same quests, it's not bad luck. It's an invitation. The universe, wise as it is, offers us the same questions in different guises until we learn the definitive answer. And there comes a time for some souls when almost everything starts to make sense. Dramas lose their weight. Suffering, even when it appears, no longer has that intensity it once did. The fear of death lessens, the intense desire for recognition and status fades, and a quiet peace begins to fill the spaces once occupied by anxiety. It might not be easy to explain to others, but an intuition arises within you. Maybe I'm completing my journey here. This feeling doesn't have to be grand. It's not about having mystical experiences or daily miracles. On the contrary, it's a growing simplicity, a more generous gaze upon the world, a sense of mission accomplished in small daily things. A soul about to leave the cycle of incarnations usually lives the ordinary as sacred, values the simple, understands that even suffering has its role, and that true freedom lies in accepting one's own story with all it has brought. Have you ever found yourself looking at life with less expectation, more lightness? Have you felt that everything you needed to learn is already, in some way, integrated into your being? List these sensations, observe the patterns. They are the first indications that your path is reaching its final destination. Now let's get to the heart of this video, the signs. They aren't magical, scandalous, or exclusive to enlightened people. They are details, small occurrences, repeated emotions that, together, reveal the final stage of the soul's journey. First sign, a recurring feeling of being an outsider in the world. Even when having fun, loving, achieving things, there's a deep sense of not belonging, as if you're just passing through. It's not sadness. It's a serene perception that material life is a temporary setting. In Cayce's terms, a cosmic longing, nameless and logically unexplainable, but one that accompanies the seeker everywhere. Second sign, frequent and intense déjà vus. More than just that quick déjà vu everyone feels occasionally, these are striking experiences, accompanied by details, information, and even emotions that couldn't have come only from this life. You find yourself in places never visited before and recognize smells, faces, paths. Sometimes, you know exactly how a situation will unfold, as if you've already lived it, but in another existence. These episodes, increasingly common in those close to transcending, indicate that the barriers between lives are thinning. Time stops being linear, and memories of other incarnations overflow like flashes into the present. Science is still searching for definitive explanations, but quantum physics already suggests that past, present, and future can coexist, and that your consciousness is beginning to access this dimension as it prepares for the final act. Third sign, a serene acceptance of death. For many, the end of life is a source of fear, anxiety, denial. For those in the final stretch, a rare calm emerges. Talking about death doesn't scare them, but clarifies. It's not a desire to die, but a deep understanding that the end is nothing more than a natural transition, a return to a broader state of consciousness. You feel comfort in thinking there's something beyond. You live more in the present, and consequently you feel freer. Fourth sign, powerful synchronicities. Small or large coincidences begin to multiply, and they no longer seem so random. You think of someone and receive a call or message at that exact moment. You need important information and it appears by chance. You ask the universe for an answer and it shows up in the form of a book, a song, a random phrase on the street. These are hints from the cosmos that now, your consciousness and material reality are increasingly intertwined. Edgar Cayce called this co-creative awakening, the understanding that you are no longer just a passenger in life, but begin to act as a co-creator of your experience. As these signs become frequent, a new state of mind emerges. There's no more frantic searching, no despair for answers, just a deep acceptance that what needed to be done has already been done. The extraordinary reveals itself in the simple, and living the ordinary transforms into the soul's greatest achievement. In the next segment, we'll dive into detailed examples of each sign, bringing concrete situations, daily accounts, and reflections so you can identify, or who knows, discover that you are indeed facing your last human chapter. Now it's time to make all this even more vivid and concrete. After all, so far we've talked about sensations, ideas, phenomena that might even sound abstract. But how, after all, do these signs appear in real life? How can you identify among your daily experiences if you are truly manifesting these signs of a soul ready to transcend? Let's start with that strange feeling of being an outsider in the world. Think of all the parties, celebrations, conversations, or even family gatherings you've ever attended. Even surrounded by loved ones, has it ever seemed like you're just observing, as if you were an invisible spectator in your own story? It's not sadness, nor arrogance. It's as if you understand at some point in your soul that there's a dimension beyond this setting. Many report that since childhood, they've felt different, carrying a subtle emptiness, a longing they can't explain. This strangeness, in fact, is a kind of invisible home, calling you back. People like this often report that, even achieving material goals, they feel none of it is definitive or truly essential. They buy a car, a house, celebrate achievements, but the satisfaction lasts briefly, as if something greater still needs to be accomplished. Deep down, it's the soul that knows. Its earthly learning process is almost complete. And what about déjà vu? Often, you're walking distracted, enter a new place, and a wave of recognition engulfs you. Every detail seems familiar, as if you've already lived there, talked to those people, smelled those scents, heard those sounds. It's not just a brief déjà vu, it's an intense, impactful experience, sometimes with deep emotions associated with memories that don't belong to this life. You might remember exactly how a dialogue will unfold, or even anticipate events with uncanny precision. There are cases where artists discover skills they've never trained for. People who suddenly sit at a piano and play masterfully, or have an inexplicable ease in learning languages, drawing, sewing, operating complex machinery. These are talents that seemingly sprout from nowhere or from past existences. As the barrier between incarnations thins, the soul begins to access its own multidimensional database. Another concrete sign is the serene acceptance of death. It can manifest in subtle ways. You talk about the end of life without discomfort, visit cemeteries with respect and peace, read books on the topic naturally. And even more curiously, a feeling of "I've died before" might emerge, accompanied by recurring dreams or visions about moments of transition. While many run from this topic, those at the end of their spiritual journey perceive death as a transition, not a terrifying end. This changes everything. There's an unprecedented tranquility to live, decide, even take risks, because the fear of the end is no longer the center of choices. And what about synchronicities? Think of how many times you thought intensely about someone, and minutes later, that person called or sent you a message, or when you urgently needed advice, and the answer came unexpectedly from a book, a video, a phrase pasted on the subway. For some, these coincidences increase so much that they are no longer considered chance, and are seen as messages from the universe. Have you heard of moments when everything seems to flow? The right doors open, opportunities appear at the exact time, and even problems seem to have a pedagogical function perfectly fitted to your journey. This feeling of being in the flow is typical of the soul that, consciously or unconsciously, has begun to co-create its own experience in fine tune with the whole. These examples are not exclusive to gurus, masters, or extraordinary people. They can appear in your life, in anyone's life who is maturing spiritually, opening themselves to the possibility that this life is indeed the final chapter of their earthly cycle. Don't underestimate your small stories, your strange dreams, your persistent hunches. Tell us in the comments, have you ever had any of these experiences? Your story might be the key for someone else to understand they're not alone on this path. A striking feature in this process is a growing sense of mystery. It's not a suffocating doubt, but a serene expectation, as if at any moment an essential truth could be revealed. Perhaps lately you felt like you're about to discover something very important, even without knowing exactly what. This feeling, which can appear in dreams, meditations, or even simple walks, carries an energy of waiting, as if the universe were preparing a surprise, a silent revelation, ready to emerge when you least expect it. Mystery also reveals itself in recurring symbols, scenes that repeat in dreams, seemingly random encounters that change your trajectory. There are well-known accounts of people who, out of nowhere, feel a deep calling to study a spiritual topic, travel to an unknown place, start a practice of silence, or distance themselves from old companions. And then, everything makes sense. That step, taken almost blindly, was a fundamental piece in the journey of awakening. Synchronicities, as we've already mentioned, intensify this atmosphere of mystery. Often life seems woven by an invisible thread. You think of studying something, and on the same day, someone gifts you a book on that exact topic. You feel like moving to a new city and receive a job offer in that place. It's as if the sacred becomes visible in the details, and every mundane experience, however trivial it seems, hides a hidden message. This sense of mystery isn't anxiety about the future, but gratitude for the unknown. Those walking towards the end of the reincarnation cycle learn to trust, because they perceive that everything has meaning, even what seemingly makes no sense. Instead of seeking rational explanations for every event, they begin to value the silence of deep questions. As this mystery becomes familiar, a powerful internal change occurs. You stop wanting to control everything and start allowing life to gradually reveal the path. It's not passive resignation, but active trust. Every moment becomes an invitation to discovery, and life is seen with the eyes of a learner, not a judge. And perhaps the greatest mystery of all is realizing that there's a silent purpose behind every stage of your story. Suffering reveals compassion, joys, gratitude, losses, humility. Mystery is never an absence of answers. It's a constant invitation to self-knowledge, surrender, presence. If you feel you're living a time of silent revelations, share in the comments. Which aspects of your life seem to hide a deeper purpose? What has mystery been teaching you? Maybe you're thinking, this all sounds beautiful, but isn't it just imagination? Hold on. Science is also delving into these phenomena and beginning to find real bridges between spirituality and objective reality. In modern psychology, the research of Brian Weiss and other renowned psychiatrists has shown that past life experiences can't just be considered fantasies. Weiss, initially skeptical, treated thousands of patients who, in states of deep relaxation, recounted historical and geographical details impossible for them to know with their cultural background. Many of these accounts, when checked, correlated with historical records. Most fascinating, people who showed signs of the end of cycle were able in a few months to resolve traumas and patterns they'd carried for years or even decades, as if the soul had finally completed its lessons. In quantum physics, the boundaries between time and space are increasingly questioned. The famous observer effect suggests that consciousness, that is, the simple act of someone perceiving, can influence the outcome of experiments at a subatomic level. This fuels theories that say reality as we know it might be a projection, a simulation, or at least something shaped by the conscious mind. If time isn't linear and matter isn't as solid as we thought, the existence of multiple lives, karmic patterns, and extracerebral memories gains new light. Another transformative concept is holography. Several scientists believe that three-dimensional reality might be a projection of information encoded on a two-dimensional surface, which would be something like the limit of the universe. Mystics and ancient masters used to say, life is like a dream, an illusion. Now science is starting to approach this idea, blending cutting-edge physics and ancient wisdom. In neuroscience, studies of altered states of consciousness, like meditation, near-death experiences, and lucid dreams, show that the brain can access memories and symbolic content that can't be explained solely by individual biography. Carl Jung, a precursor of deep psychology, proposed the existence of the collective unconscious, a universal layer of humanity's memory and symbols. In other words, what we experience as signs, sensations, intuitions, and synchronicities might be much more than illusion. It could be direct access to deeper dimensions of reality. Our brain, our mind, and especially our consciousness seem to be portals to something greater. So don't dismiss your experiences. Write down dreams, déjà vu, synchronicities. Read about science, spirituality, quantum physics, and psychology. Understand that the barrier between reason and faith, science and spirituality is increasingly thin, and you can indeed live the best of both worlds. Now, I want to see you bring this reflection closer. How do science, spirituality, intuition, and reason act in your daily life? Have you had any scientific or spiritual insights that changed your path? Write it here in the comments, and get ready, because in the next topics, we'll deepen the invitation to self-exploration, the synthesis of everything, and the preparation for definitive transformation. If you've made it this far, you've realized there are no ready-made answers when it comes to the soul's destiny. Only you can feel, recognize, and decipher the signs that appear on your own journey. And that's why the next step, perhaps the most powerful, is honest and deep self-exploration. Think now, How many times have you ignored that subtle intuition or a feeling of strangeness because it seemed out of the ordinary? How many times have you allowed the world's noise to drown out your soul's silent voice? The truth is, haste, routine, and the constant search for certainties distance us from our ability to listen to what truly matters. But what if you allowed yourself to pause? What if, from today on, you gave more value to these small internal clues? Close your eyes for a few seconds, don't rush. Pay attention to your breathing. Ask yourself, what moments in my life carried this feeling of I already know this path? What events have I lived that seem to have been rehearsed, felt, experienced before? Sometimes there isn't a clear answer, but rather a diffuse emotion, an image, a smell, a distant sound. Make this exercise a habit. Record dreams, write down déjà vu, observe repeated patterns. Pay attention to your reaction to the topic of death and detachment. These notes, however simple, will transform into a subtle map of your journey. Reading your own words after some time reveals a lot about your maturity and where you are on the path of awakening. It's not about seeking external validation, but about taking ownership of your journey with respect and curiosity. Self-knowledge is like an internal lighthouse. The more you illuminate yourself, the more you realize you're not alone. How many of us feel the desire to serve, to help, to transform the pain of others? How many, instead of judging, feel spontaneous empathy for the suffering of all beings? This call to self-exploration doesn't end when the video ends. On the contrary, it's just the beginning. Participate actively. Write in the comments what you felt, what signs you've noticed, what doubts remain. Your sharing can help others see their own path. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it now. Like, share, and invite someone you feel is also seeking meaning in life. Together we are stronger in building this new perspective on the spiritual world. Ready? Keep diving deep, because in the next topics, we'll tie together the threads of these experiences to reveal the true transformative potential of spiritual recognition. You're not alone in this search, and there's much more reserved for those who dare to tread the path of self-discovery. We've reached the synthesis point of this conversation, the place where all signs, symptoms, intuitions, and mysteries converge. Realize, this journey doesn't demand perfection, but integrity. It doesn't require certainties, but surrender and willingness to live the mystery of existence with courage and love. By recognizing these signs within you, the feeling of not belonging, persistent déjà vus, acceptance of death, synchronicities, detachment, dissolution of identity, universal empathy, the end of repetitive cycles, a silent understanding is born that life is more than a succession of random events. You begin to see with more clarity that every challenge brought a hidden gift, every suffering generated a lesson, every relationship was a mirror. This transformation doesn't happen magically. It's the fruit of acceptance, of embracing one's own limits, of humility to admit that we don't know everything and don't need to know. What matters is the next step, the next choice, the present to be inhabited with consciousness. Many people imagine that recognizing oneself as ready to transcend the earthly cycle means abandoning ordinary life, despising material things, or refusing the everyday. In fact, it's exactly the opposite. By perceiving that the ordinary is sacred, every second, every gesture, every smile or tear gains a meaning that goes beyond. You begin to experience the present moment as a portal to the eternal. It's this perception that everything can be lived with presence, dignity, compassion, and self-responsibility that, in itself, is liberating. Attachment to old pains, old desires and fears naturally dissolves without force. As Cayce and many other masters said, the mature soul doesn't abandon the world, it serves it with truth and simplicity. The power of transformation lies precisely in recognizing that your story isn't just yours. It intertwines with everyone's, in a web of meaning and purpose. And the best part, this transformative vision emanates and expands. People around you notice your glow, even if they can't explain it. Relationships become more authentic, choices align with what is most essential, challenges become less paralyzing. Deep down, to transcend is to integrate. It's to accept yourself, love yourself, embrace every part of the journey, and simply be. The last life isn't the end, it's the beginning of a new kind of existence, with less weight, more lightness, and much more freedom. And now tell me, What would your life be like if you truly accepted that all of this makes sense? What would change today in how you love, work, dream, act? Close your eyes once more and imagine. Lightness to live, courage to decide, gratitude for every moment, even for what you don't understand right now. Perhaps the greatest secret of all is this: the soul ready to transcend discovers that the ordinary is extraordinary, and that every detail of daily life is a path to liberation. Don't look for grand miracles. Notice the magic hidden in every sunrise, in unexpected reunions, in choices made with a tranquil heart. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to access more stories like this. But the journey doesn't end here. In the next video, we'll reveal practices to accelerate and deepen this process. Self-knowledge exercises, guided meditations, simple rituals to awaken soul memories, and suggestions for finding purpose in every moment of life. After all, if there's a last act, may it be lived with fullness, joy, and maximum consciousness. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and share this video. Invite anyone you feel is ready to take the next step. Together, we form a network of search, hope, and evolution. And here's a final thought. Perhaps ordinary life really is the true sacred path. The stage of awakening is here, and the last act can also be the most beautiful. How about walking this path with us? See you on the next journey.